Welcome back to the Chattable podcast, where enrich vocabulary and speak English with pride.
We are so glad to have you with us again.
Imagine for a second that you are holding a knife.
Okay, just a standard knife.
Right. But instead of holding it safely by the handle, you are holding it by the blade itself.
Oh, wow. That sounds painful.
It is. You might be cutting faster than anyone else, but your hands are getting sliced open in the process.
Yeah, that is a really intense image to start with.
It really is. And for this episode, we are unpacking two highly visual English phrases that carry that kind of intensity.
Exactly. We are looking at what happens when we push things to their absolute limit.
Right. One phrase paints a picture of pushing technology to the point where it might break, and the other is about holding your own human emotions in check when you're under immense pressure.
Two very different kinds of pressure, but both are fascinating to explore.
Let's dive right in. We are starting with a phrase that pops up constantly in business and tech spaces.
Right, the bleeding edge.
Yes, the bleeding edge. And simply defined, this refers to the absolute newest, most advanced stage of technology or innovation.
And the key part of that definition is the experimental nature of it.
Right, because it is so new.
Exactly. You are operating at the very front line of what is scientifically possible.
So to unpack this a bit, we all know the classic phrase cutting edge, right?
Yeah, that is a very common one.
And cutting edge implies being advanced, being sharp. So why the shift to bleeding?
That is a great question.
I mean, is it just to sound more dramatic? Or is there a real difference?
There's a very functional difference, actually. The origin of bleeding edge goes back to the late 20th century.
Oh, really? In what industry?
Primarily in the computer and engineering industries.
Okay, so a time of massive technological growth.
Right. It was the time when computing power was moving so fast. So you can think of the bleeding edge as a sharper, more extreme version of the cutting edge.
So it is not just about being the newest, it is about the risk involved.
Let's go back to your knife analogy. The cutting edge is the sharp part doing the work.
Right, and it is advanced, but it is safe.
Exactly. You are holding the handle, the tool does what you expect it to do.
But if you move your hand past that safe boundary...
You touch the raw blade.
Yeah.
And you start bleeding.
That makes so much sense. So in technology, being at the bleeding edge means you are moving so fast that the experimental tech might completely break down.
And if you are holding that technology when it breaks down, you get hurt.
Not physically bleeding, I assume?
Usually not, no. But the company bleeds capital.
Ah, I see.
The investors bleed money. The engineers lose years of painstaking work.
The whole project just collapses.
Exactly. That incredibly high risk of failure is what truly separates the bleeding edge from the cutting edge.
Let's ground this in some real-world examples to make it clear.
I think the story of Lisa Su is a perfect example of this.
Oh, right. She took over as the chief executive officer at AMD.
Yes. AMD is a massive semiconductor company. But back when she accepted that job, I think it was 2014, the company was struggling badly.
I remember reading about that. People told her it was one of the riskiest career moves she could possibly make.
They did. AMD was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were rapidly losing market share to their competitors.
And usually the standard playbook in that situation is to play it very safe.
Oh, absolutely. You cut costs. You lay off workers. You release minor safe upgrades.
Just to keep the company afloat.
Right. But she saw this as a dream job. She wanted to lead innovation at the bleeding edge of semiconductor technology.
Wait, so she actively chose to make a failing company even riskier?
She threw out the safe playbook entirely.
That is wild.
She directed her engineering teams to develop a completely new microarchitecture. It was called Zen.
And this wasn't just a small upgrade.
No, not at all. It was a radical, totally untested way of building a computer processor from scratch.
I mean, I guess if you play it safe when you are already losing, you just lose slower.
Exactly. By stepping into that dangerous experimental space, she opened the door for a massive breakthrough.
But the risk must have been huge.
Monumental. Developing a new chip costs hundreds of millions of dollars. It takes years.
So if it failed in the testing phase?
If it failed, AMD would have collapsed. The company would have bled out completely.
Wow. But she took the gamble, and it completely revolutionized the industry.
It really did. It is a brilliant example of the bleeding edge.
But, you know, it doesn't just apply to famous CEOs managing billions of dollars, right?
No, it happens on a smaller scale, too.
I am thinking of a more relatable career example. Let's talk about Nathan.
Oh, right, the researcher at the biotech startup.
Yeah. He designs medical equipment, specifically robotic arms for surgical procedures.
Which is fascinating work.
He absolutely loves his job. And that is because he gets to design this equipment at the bleeding edge of science.
The stakes in his laboratory are incredibly high.
Extremely high. I mean, think about a normal software developer. If they write bad code, maybe a mobile phone app crashes.
Right, you just restart the phone, no big deal.
But if Nathan's experimental code fails, a robotic surgical scalpel malfunctions.
And he is dealing with robotic feedback systems that have never been tested on human tissue before.
There is no textbook for him to read to find the answers.
Because he's the one writing the textbook.
Exactly. And if his experimental designs fail, the startup runs out of funding.
They close down. So that danger of failure is just woven into his daily routine.
So the risk genuinely has to be real. This brings up an important point about when not to use the phrase.
Yes, we need to establish the boundaries here.
You can't just use bleeding edge for basic everyday upgrades, can you?
No, definitely not. The technology must carry that high risk of catastrophic failure.
So let's say a local restaurant buys a new digital cash register.
Okay.
It is the absolute newest, fastest cash register on the market. It came out yesterday. Is that restaurant on the bleeding edge?
No, they are not.
Huh?
Because there is a massive corporate safety net beneath that product.
Right. The company that built it has already tested it.
They tested it for thousands of hours before selling it. It is just a standard, safe business purchase.
What about a consumer example? Let's say a woman named Chloe goes to the store.
Right.
And she buys a standard new smartphone. It is very expensive. It has the newest camera, the fastest processor.
Everyone else already has one or is buying one.
Right. But Chloe feels like she is holding the future in her hands.
She might feel that way, but she is not on the bleeding edge.
Because there is no real risk.
Exactly. There is no risk of financial ruin for Chloe. The phone works perfectly.
So to properly use bleeding edge, you really need to be talking about things that feel risky.
Things like quantum computing or space rockets.
Experimental things that haven't been fully safety tested yet.
As the saying goes, you have to be standing in the dark, building the flashlight while you walk.
That is a great way to put it. So we just talked about what happens when you push technology past its safe boundaries.
Right, to the point where it might physically or financially break.
But what happens when you push a human being's emotions to their breaking point?
That is a very different kind of pressure.
It really is. And that seamless thematic link brings us to our second phrase for this episode.
Yes, keep it together.
So, to define it simply, keep it together means to control your emotions.
It means you remain calm under pressure.
Right. You successfully stop yourself from crying or screaming or even laughing hysterically during a really overwhelming moment.
The origin of this phrase gives us such a deep visual context.
I love the mental picture for this one.
I want you to imagine your mind or your emotional state as a physical object.
Okay, like a fragile object.
Yes, picture it made of many different interlocking pieces, like a delicate glass sculpture.
So when you experience massive shock or sadness or even extreme laughter,
It feels like a heavy force hits that glass sculpture.
it physically feels like your internal structure is about to shatter into 100 pieces.
Exactly. You feel a rising panic. Your breathing changes. The urge to fall apart is very real.
So keeping it together literally means holding all the pieces of yourself tight.
By sheer willpower, you hold the pieces so you stay in control of your behavior.
That physical sensation is so relatable, especially with laughter.
Laughter is a great example because humor is a very disruptive force.
It really is. I am thinking about classic comedians like Chris Tucker or Eddie Murphy.
Oh, they are legendary.
They are so incredibly funny, and when they go on television, you can see the other celebrities around them struggling.
The talk show hosts just cannot keep it together around them.
You can physically see the hosts clenching their jaws.
Their eyes are watering, their shoulders are shaking.
Right. Because trying to suppress a genuine laugh requires immense physical effort.
It does. When a comedian delivers a perfect joke, your brain experiences a sudden release of tension.
Your vocal cords want to make noise.
Your diaphragm wants to spasm. It is an involuntary reflex.
And the hosts are trying to hold the pieces of their serious professional behavior tight.
But the jokes are too powerful. The internal glass shatters, and they burst out laughing.
They lose the internal struggle.
Exactly. But we also see this phrase used in high-stress situations, too.
Yes, where losing control has much more serious consequences.
Let's look at another scenario. Think about a young man named Julian.
Okay.
Julian was preparing for his first really big stage performance. He had to sing a complex song in front of a massive audience.
That is terrifying. The pressure in the room would be so heavy.
Heavy enough to completely shatter his confidence. He was incredibly nervous.
I can imagine. His heart is racing.
His nervous system is triggering a fight-or-flight response. His brain is telling him to run away.
He is actively fighting his own body just to stay on the stage.
But Julian managed to keep it together.
He held those emotional pieces tight.
He forced his breathing to slow down. He focused, walked out into the spotlight, and sang beautifully.
He didn't let himself fall apart until he walked back off the stage.
Right. It is a remarkable display of holding your own mind in check.
Okay, so we need to clarify the boundaries for this phrase too, just like we did for the bleeding edge.
That is important. This phrase strictly requires an internal fight against a strong emotion.
So it could be panic, grief, anger, or amusement.
Yes. But there has to be an active struggle.
So you cannot use this for someone who is already calm.
No, you cannot.
Let's use a specific example. Imagine a woman named Sophia.
Okay, Sophia.
Sophia is sitting on a beautiful beach. She is listening to the waves, and she is reading a book.
Sounds very peaceful.
It is. Is Sophia keeping it together?
No, she is not. Because there is nothing trying to pull her apart.
There is no heavy force hitting the glass sculpture.
She isn't fighting any internal emotion. She is just resting.
What if the book she is reading on the beach is a terrifying horror novel?
Well, that changes things.
Her heart is pounding. She is actively fighting the urge to scream out loud in front of the other people on the beach.
In that case, yes, she is keeping it together.
Is the struggle is there?
Exactly. The effort is the defining characteristic of the phrase. If there is no battle to maintain composure, you are not keeping it together.
This has been such an incredible journey through these phrases.
It really highlights the incredible imagery hidden in everyday English.
We started with the financial and technical dangers of the bleeding edge,
where pushing experimental technology past its safe boundaries can cause immense harm.
And then we moved to the deeply physical imagery of holding your shattering emotions tight in order to keep it together.
These aren't just casual vocabulary words.
No, they are vivid little stories about human ambition and struggle.
And, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder today.
Oh, I like where this is going.
A thought that actually connects both of these concepts. Think about the massive pressure on the pioneers we talked about earlier.
The people inventing technology at the bleeding edge.
Right. Imagine being the person in that room, like Lisa Su at AMD or Nathan the biotech researcher.
The stakes are impossibly high. Millions of dollars are on the line.
The future of an entire industry rests on your shoulders. And then, suddenly, the experimental tech starts failing.
The warning lights flash.
The money begins to bleed.
The stress in that boardroom would be absolutely suffocating.
Just imagine how much emotional strength it takes to stand in that room, face that massive failure, and still manage to keep it together.
That is a very powerful image to walk away with, holding yourself tight while the technology breaks apart. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
We hope you enjoyed exploring the deep roots of these expressions.
Keep your ears open, listen out for these phrases in the wild, and think about the complex pictures they paint. Until next time.